Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today we're returning to Fallout 76, where we're going to spend another 1000 script with the Purveyor on 3-star ranged legendary weapons. And as always, I'll take a few moments to talk about each one, about what makes it good, bad, or indifferent. So let's go on ahead and get started and see if we get anything good today. So for our first roll, we get an instigating harpoon gun with VATS critical hits doing plus 50% damage and breaks 50% slower. So the instigating effect unfortunately does not do what it says on the box. It's been nerfed in one of the more recent patches to only do double the base damage of the weapon. Now, on heavier hitting weapons, such as the harpoon gun, for example, that can still be quite powerful, but it is not double the damage on the card, assuming that you are using anything such as perks, chems, anything like that to increase your damage output. So it's important to be aware of that, but on a slower, harder hitting weapon like this, the instigating effect can still be very good and can get you a lot of one-hit kills. The VATS critical hits doing plus 50% damage. Well, the harpoon gun is one of the better heavy guns that you could actually use for VATS. So that is actually kind of interesting on this weapon. And the advantage of doing so is that you get some extra damage from targeting the weak points specifically, as well as the critical hit damage. And getting an extra plus 50% damage on that critical hit is great. So this is kind of an interesting weapon. The breaking 50% slower, that's good on any weapon. It's not really my favorite 3rd star, but it's never a bad 3rd star because I don't really think anybody ever enjoys repairing their weapons. I think that Bethesda could have just left that completely out of the game and nobody would have complained, but it's here, so we have to deal with it. But having a weapon that breaks 50% slower is definitely a good thing. So overall, this one is interesting. It could make it for an interesting heavy gun sniper sort of weapon because the harpoon gun does fire slowly but a bit more precisely, at least if you're using VATS and such. So overall, this one's interesting. I don't know that it's really worth keeping around. It's probably not the best version of a sniper type of harpoon gun that you could get, but it is interesting. Let's go on ahead and move on to the next one. And here we've got a Nocturnal Snubnose 44 pistol with replenishing action points with each kill and 25% less VATS AP cost. So the Nocturnal effect is not as bad as it used to be. It used to be that it was worse than a non-legendary version during the day because it gave you a damage penalty during the day. It no longer does that, it just does not give you any bonus damage during the day, but the damage bonus at night is actually pretty significant. If you're the type of player who would remember to switch weapons between day and night, then you might actually find the Nocturnal effect to be pretty useful. I am not that sort of player, so I do not like the Nocturnal effect even with that buff. The replenishing action points with each kill is actually pretty good on this weapon because if you're going to be using a pistol like this, like any sort of gunslinger weapon, then you probably are going to be wanting to use VATS to get some extra damage, both from targeting the weak points and from the criticals. So, because pistols are a bit underpowered, unfortunately. So, the replenishing action points with each kill just allows you to keep using VATS more effectively, or for longer periods of time, rather, without needing to stop and refresh your AP bar. And then the 25% less VATS AP cost synergizes very well with that because it does the same thing. You're getting AP back every time you kill something, and your shots are taking less AP. So with this weapon, you could probably almost never run out of AP when you're running around using it in VATS. Unfortunately, the 1st star kind of makes it unexciting, so let's go on ahead and move on to the next one. And here we've got a Hunter's Gauss rifle with replenishing action points with each kill and +1 agility. So the Hunter's is one of the Slayer's effects, and it's probably one of the less useful of the Slayer's effects just because, for one, how often are you really going to be going out there and hunting animals specifically? There may be the occasional daily challenge or something to go kill a Deathclaw or something like that, but is it really worth keeping a specific weapon around just for that? In my opinion, no. And second of all, while there are some of the animals in the game that are a bit tougher, like, for example, the Deathclaws and the Yaoguais, a lot of the animals go down pretty quickly even without a legendary effect, so overall, I'm not a fan of the Hunter's effect on weapons. The replenishing action points with each kill, we talked about that on the last weapon. It's still a very good effect. The Gauss rifle is definitely the sort of weapon that you could use in VATS as a sniper weapon. You can suppress it, so you can use stealth with it. So it's overall a very good choice to do something like that, and getting action points back with every time you kill something will allow you to, keep killing things in VATS over and over. Although I think that with the Gauss rifle, if you're dropping in and out of VATS when you are between shots or reloading or whatever, then you're probably not going to be running out of AP that frequently with the Gauss rifle if you've got a half-decent AP pool to begin with. So I don't know that it's as good as it could be on some weapons, but it's still never bad. And then +1 agility, that's not bad. I mean, it's not particularly exciting. It's a little bit of extra stealth, it's a little bit of extra AP, but it's just so little extra that I don't know that it's worth getting excited over. So overall, this one is pretty unexciting. Let's go on ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, this one is just bad. We got a Furious Salvaged Assaultron head with +50% VATS hit chance and breaks 50% slower. So the Salvaged Assaultron head is kind of a meme weapon in my opinion. It would be really cool if they made it into a viable weapon that players could run around with as their main, or even just, a functional off weapon, that they break out for fun. But it's just too unreliable for that. You can load many rounds into it and fire them. When you fire it, it fires every round that you load into it, every energy cell at once. And sometimes it does really good damage and will take even big things down in one hit, and sometimes it barely scratches their health bar at all. So yeah, I don't recommend trying to use this unless you just want to see some serious inconsistencies. The +50% VATS hit chance, this could be good on this weapon because since you have to reload after every shot, it would make sense to use VATS so that you can have a better chance of hitting your target and hitting the weak point so that you can try and get those one-hit kills. And the +50% VATS hit chance will help that happen, but again, because it's an Assaultron head, there's no guarantee that you'll actually do a significant amount of damage, no matter how many fusion cells you've loaded up into it. And I missed talking about the Furious effect. So the Furious effect is an absolute joke on this weapon, just because you have to reload it after every shot. It doesn't matter whether you load 1 fusion cell into it or 8, you're going to have to reload the weapon after you fire it. So the Furious effect, which does nothing on the first shot and then adds +5% per shot after that, up to, I believe it's 50%, but it could be 45% total bonus damage on the same target after you fired like 10 shots on them. That's just, you're never going to see that with the Assaultron head. Sure, maybe against a boss fight, but if you're using an Assaultron head against one of the endgame bosses, you're in for a bad time. So the break 50% slower, again, that's great on pretty much any weapon, but this weapon is bad, so it doesn't really stop it from being bad. So let's go on ahead and move on to the next one. And here we have an Instigating Gatling Plasma with replenishing action points with each kill and +250 damage resistance while reloading. So the Instigating effect, as I mentioned, does not do what it says on the box. It actually is double the base damage of the weapon, which is not terrible in the case of the Gatling Plasma, but it's really not the kind of weapon you really want the Instigating effect on, because the damage is not especially high per shot. The real strength of the Gatling Plasma is its high fire rate. So yeah, you can sometimes get the Instigating effect to trigger for multiple hits on the same target if you have a high fire rate weapon, but that's really a lag thing and not something that I would recommend counting on. So again, not the best first star for this weapon. The replenishing action points with each kill, that's a great effect, but this is probably not the weapon you really want it on, just because chances are you're not going to be using VATS with the Gatling Plasma, or if you are, you're not going to be using it a whole lot, just because it's going to burn through your AP very, very quickly because of that high fire rate. And it does not have a semi-automatic version, so you're paying the full AP cost per shot for the automatic version. Whereas things like the handmade rifle, for example, or the fixer, they have a much higher AP cost per shot on the semi-automatic versions than they do on the automatic versions. So you're not getting that benefit with the Gatling plasma, unfortunately. And then the 250 damage resistance while reloading, that's a solid effect for a weapon like this because it does take some time to reload, and getting a little bit of extra protection while you're reloading is not a bad thing. But it has such a large clip that you're not going to be reloading it that often, although because it is a core weapon, you're probably not going to want to be reloading it between battles unless you're actually down to empty, because otherwise you'll end up with a whole bunch of plasma cores in your inventory that are less than full. So overall, not the best 3rd star, really not the best weapon overall, but I could see some players using it until they got their hands on something better, a lower level player, but really this one's probably heading back to Murmur and the Scrip bins. So let's go ahead and try it again here, see what we get. And here we have a Troubleshooter's Ultrasight Gatling Laser with bashing damage increased by 50% and +1 perception. So the Troubleshooter's effect is probably one of, or maybe even the most useful of the of the Slayer's effects, because there are definitely times when you're going to be fighting robots, whether you want to be or not, such as anytime you run a nuke silo, or if you decide to do the encrypted event, or even in some daily ops and things like that. So the other side of it is that robots are not particularly squishy. A lot of them take several hits to go down even with a good weapon, so getting some extra damage against them, that's useful, and because of the guaranteed times when you're likely to be facing them, it might be worth keeping a weapon around specifically to deal with robots. This is probably not the one you would do that with, but that's beside the point. The bashing damage increased by 50%. That is just bad on pretty much every weapon except the minigun. The bashing damage in this game is so low that adding 50% to it is just not really doing much of anything at all. So, on the other hand, if there was a minigun and you put the Shredder mod on it, the bashing damage increased by 50% on that is actually very, very good. So, because this is not a minigun, it's bad on this weapon. The +1 perception, it's not a bad thing, but it's kind of unexciting. The only thing it really gives you is better VATS accuracy, and this is probably not the type of weapon that you're going to be trying to use in VATS, so it's probably not doing a whole lot for you there. So again, pretty unexciting weapon. Let's see if we can get something better here. And not really. We got a 2-shot pipe revolver, with the last round in the magazine having a 25% chance to deal double damage, and 25% less VATS AP cost. So the 2-shot effect is interesting in that it used to do actually double damage. It would fire 2 full shots and do each shot would do the full damage, and it imposed a significant accuracy penalty. Unfortunately, that's no longer the case. It now does plus 25% damage, so for 125% total damage, but that damage is divided up between the 2 projectiles for 62.5 or whatever percent of the base of the total damage of the weapon you see on the card there. So that's not particularly exciting, especially considering that each one of those shots is going to have to get through the target's armor separately. So it's kind of costing you damage against high armor targets. And then the accuracy penalty is still in place. So the one situation where 2-shot is still very good is with explosive weapons, whether it's a native explosive weapon such as the Gauss weapons or the launchers, or whether it's just a weapon with the explosive 2nd star. But this weapon is not explosive in either way, so it's just not good here. The last round in a magazine having 25% chance to deal double damage is probably my least favorite 2nd star completely, because unlike the bashing damage where there is at least one valid use case for it, there's really, in my opinion, no valid use case for this. The 25% chance is just way, way too low. It's effectively like not having a second legendary effect, in my opinion. So The 25% less VATS AP cost, that's actually very good on this weapon because, again, this is a gunslinger weapon and therefore a bit underpowered, meaning that if you are going to be using it, you're probably going to want to use VATS to get some extra damage in, so having it cost less VATS points to fire is going to be good and allow you to keep firing it more frequently in VATS and get more of those criticals and just keep moving without having to stop and refill your point meters. So anyway, overall not particularly exciting. Let's go on ahead and move on to the next one. And yeah, this one we've got a Mutant Slayer's short pump action shotgun with plus 50% VATS hit chance and 90% reduced weight. So the Mutant Slayer's effect is another one of the better versions of the Assassin or the Slayer's effects, because there are definitely times when you're likely to be hunting super mutants, whether it be for a daily op or just because you're hitting West Tech because you want to grind some experience or whatever. So it might in some situations be worth keeping a specific weapon around just to deal with super mutants, because they are a bit tanky, so getting some extra damage against them is not a bad thing. The plus 50% VATS hit chance is one of my favorite second stars in the game. It straight up increases your damage and your weapon's range under certain circumstances. It increases your damage as long as you are using VATS to target the weak points, and you're going to be targeting them much more successfully and getting that extra damage with the VATS hit chance bonus, legendary effect. And it will normally increase your accuracy beyond what it shows on the weapon card, just because the bonus you get there will offset some of the drop-off for accuracy past that range, but you will still see the damage reduction, which unfortunately on shotguns is 90%. So that effect does not really increase the effective range of a shotgun, because even though you can target things outside of your range, you're going to do so little damage that it's just really not worth it, unlike some other weapons where you only have a 50% drop-off. The 90% reduced weight, that's great to see on a weapon like this. It's a Slayer's effect, because that makes it easier to keep it around for the situations where you need it without it taking up a whole bunch of space in your inventory. The drawback being that there are quite a few mods that you can apply to a shotgun, and when you do apply those mods, they are not benefiting from the 90% reduced weight. So overall, with shotguns and rifles, in my experience, you usually see about half weight from the 90% reduced weight effect. Once you've got them modded out the way you like them, your mileage may vary. But overall, that one's not particularly exciting, so let's go ahead and try it again and see if we can maybe get something good today. And this isn't really it. So this time we got a Juggernaut submachine gun, with the last round in the magazine having a 25% chance to deal double damage and plus 50 damage resistance while aiming. So the Juggernaut's effect is kind of the counter to the Bloodied effect, but it's just bad in my opinion. It only gives you a total of plus 25% damage bonus at full health. And it's a lot harder to stay at 100% full health than you might think. Even picking up just a couple of stray rads can knock you off of full health. And then you'll be seeing that bonus diminish even further. And that 25% bonus that you get for full health is nowhere near what you get from Bloodied down at Nerd Rage level, which is 20%. So overall, it's kind of a joke in my opinion. The last round in the magazine having 25% chance to deal double damage, well, I talked about that earlier. It's probably even worse on this weapon than it was on the one before, because with the Juggernaut submachine gun, you are probably going to be reloading regularly between fights, so oftentimes you won't even fire that last round, so that 25% chance drops down to 0% chance. The plus 50 damage resistance while aiming, it's not a bad effect. It can give you some extra protection while you're aiming down sights, and if you're the type of player who likes to aim down sights, then that's basically just free protection, and that's not a bad thing. I'm more of a VATS user, and this weapon is very good for VATS, so for me that third star wouldn't do much of anything on this weapon, although I would find it much more useful on a heavy gun where I am much less likely to use VATS, even though I really do like VATS. So overall, this one's pretty unexciting. Let's go on ahead and try it again here. And now we've got a 2-shot Hellstorm missile launcher with plus 50% VATS hit chance and plus 1 perception. So this is one of those times where 2-shot is actually decent because the Hellstorm missile launcher is, as you might expect, an explosive weapon. So the 2-shot works very well with explosive weapons, and the base damage of the weapon also means that you're not losing so much of the base damage to the armor when you split that up between the 2 shots. So overall, this weapon could be pretty good. The plus 50% VATS hit chance is going to let you target your enemy's weak points with this weapon and have a very high likelihood of getting those one-shot kills, as well as potentially dealing some extra damage to some nearby enemies and possibly killing them as well. So that's a great thing. And the VATS hit chance also will help offset the accuracy penalty of the 2-shot effect. The plus 1 perception, that's basically just more VATS accuracy, so that actually synergizes very well with the 2nd star. So if you're someone like me who enjoys using VATS for most of their weapons, then this could be a very good VATS Hellstorm missile launcher for you. I might actually take this one for a spin and see how it does. Alright, I think we already did 10, but I don't feel like counting, so I'm going to go ahead and do one more here just to be sure. So, this time we got a Nocturnal Pipe Pistol with bashing damage increased by 50% and faster movement speed while aiming. So, we talked about the Nocturnal effect earlier. It's good at night, not particularly exciting, but not terrible during the day. It's just basically like no legendary effect on the 1st star during the day. The bashing damage increased by 50%. Well, we talked about that earlier too. This is not a minigun, so it's just bad here. The faster movement speed while aiming, that effect does do what it says on the box. Unfortunately, if you already have the Speed Demon mutation, which I believe that most endgame players probably will, unless they're doing some sort of role-playing build or challenge build or something like that, then it's not doing anything for you, because if you have the Speed Demon mutation, then really nothing that increases your movement speed is benefiting. It gives you the maximum movement speed in all situations from what I've seen. So if you don't have that, then it will increase your movement speed while aiming, but even then, I don't think that too many players are going to be spending a lot of time running around the battlefield while aiming. I think the standard tactic is move, aim, fire, move. So even then, I don't think that's doing a whole lot for you. So overall, this one's pretty bad, and we really didn't get anything good today. We got a couple that were somewhat interesting, but that's the way it goes sometimes with Murmur. Maybe next time she'll give us something good. I hope so, and I hope you'll tune in then. Until then, please remember, if you enjoy content like this, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the channel out, and it doesn't cost you any money. Alright, well, thanks for tuning in.